Today's topic is about mechanism of breathing. This is a part of respiration part of your chapter 6 life processes. So try to understand the topic. So children, here I am with a new topic of class 10 chapter 6 life processes. The part was respiration. Now here I have just subdivided the various life processes into various parts that you know. Now this is the mechanism of breathing in human being. Now you see, mechanism of breathing involves the two processes, that is inhalation and exhalation, that are the physical processes, and then you know about the respiration, that is the cellular respiration that I have already discussed in the previous video. Now here I am going to describe about the physical process, that is the inhalation and exhalation process, in which the lungs play a major role. Now you see, in human beings, the multicellular human beings, diffusion of gas from the external environment to the lungs is not possible. Why? Because you have read in the previous part that in human being, as we have a complex body design, so every cells of our body are not directly in contact with the environment, and hence our body cells cannot diffuse the oxygen or the gases directly from the environment to our respiratory system. So simple diffusion process is not the process of exchange of gases from the external environment to the lungs. So for that we have a special respiratory system. Now this respiratory system includes some of the organs. Now let's have a glance about the organs. First, nostril, then the nasal cavity, thereafter pharynx, then larynx, trachea, bronchi and bronchioles, alveolar sac, and the lungs finally. So these are the organs associated with the respiratory system of human being. Now I will describe each and every part of the respiratory system. Before that I would like to tell you something about the respiratory pigment. Now in our blood, you know, blood is the conducting tissue, is the fluid connective tissue that connect the various parts of our body through blood vessels and transport various hormone, nutrients as well as respiratory gases. Now there is a respiratory pigment in our RBC. The respiratory pigment is called hemoglobin. Now what does hemoglobin means? Globin is a type of protein which is bound to heme. Heme means iron. So iron bound globin protein is called hemoglobin, which is the respiratory pigment in human being. Clear? Now this respiratory pigment bind with the oxygen and transport it to the various cells. That part is the next part of the mechanism of breathing that I will tell you later. Now first let's have a glance about the various type of organs associated with respiratory system in our body. First is nostril. Now you see, this nostril is the external opening. The two nostrils are there in our facial region. These two nostrils are separated by a cartilaginous septum. Clear? Now these nostrils lead internally into a cavity called nasal cavity. Clear? So this is the nostril. You see, I have drawn a diagram here to just give you an idea about the total system of our respiratory system in our body. Now you can have a look here. You see, if this is the nasal passage, this is the nasal passage. So this is having two nostrils, two sides. Okay. And here is the nasal cavity. So nasal cavity, where there is a cartilaginous structure that separates the two nostrils of our nose. Now this nostril, the two nasal cavities, the nasal cavities, they are separated by a cartilaginous septum. Clear? Now you see, these nostrils lead internally into nasal cavity. Now nasal cavity is separated from the oral cavity. Clear? Nasal cavity is separated from the oral cavity by a bony structure. Now the bony structure is called palate. Now this nasal cavity contains hair, mucus. Okay. Now even it contains some ciliated and sensory epithelial cells. I will describe about the function of this cavity. What does the nasal cavity do? So as I told you, this nasal cavity plays a specific role. So what are the role of the nasal cavity? First role, you may note it down in your copy if you want. The first role is it warms the inhaled air. Whatever air is entering the nasal cavity from the environment, it converts into the temperature of the body, means the warming of the inhaled air take place, that brings the air to our body temperature. Next, this air which is inhaled from outside is added with moisture. Okay, even suppose sometime in the summer season, if there is a dry air, there is a loo outside, so the air that is brought from the outer environment is warm, is added with moisture. Okay. Third is mucus is present, as I told you just a few seconds ago, that there is mucus secreted in the epithelial, okay, in the nasal passage. Now this mucus and the cilia means the ciliated epithelial cells are there. The cilia that are present in this chamber, that traps the dust and various harmful particles in the air, okay, and it clears the air in the nasal passage. Next the next organ is the pharynx. Now pharynx, the pharynx, the two nostrils, in this side you can see one side, there on the other side also there is one nasal passage. So the two nostrils, okay, enter into the pharynx. It is a common passage for food and air. Okay, so now pharynx act as a common passage for food and air. Clear? Now this pharynx, you see, it has two openings, dorsal openings. Now these openings lead to one to the food pipe and another to the windpipe. Now this windpipe is the opening where the trachea enters, where it is protected with epiglottis. So glottis is protected by epiglottis. Now glottis lead to trachea. Now this glottis is protected by epiglottis due to during swallowing of the food, so that no food particles should enter the glottis, that is the trachea. So that's why epiglottis is there. Okay, next come the voice box, that is the larynx. Larynx, you can see here larynx. So pharynx, larynx. Now what is the function of larynx? Larynx is the voice box, clear? Now pharynx open into an anterior wider part called larynx, or through the glottis. Next come trachea, which is also known as the windpipe. You see, the windpipe or the trachea is a cartilaginous structure. It is a ring of cartilage. It is not a continuous bone. The ring of cartilages, okay, which forms the trachea. Can you tell me why this trachea is not a bony structure? Why it is a ring of cartilages? Yes. Might be you are thinking that the cartilaginous structure prevent it from collapsing. Right, you are correct. That is the answer, that the cartilaginous ring of the trachea prevent the trachea from collapsing. Okay, so it's a trachea is supported by incomplete C-shaped cartilaginous ring in order to prevent it from collapsing. Next come bronchi and bronchiole. You see, this trachea further divided into two branches. You see, the trachea divided into two branches. This is one branch, this is another branch. These two branches is the trachea divided. Now these two branches are called bronchi, B-R-O-N-C-H-I. Bronchi is the plural form of bronchus. Clear? So this is the bronchi. So these are two bronchi. The bronchi further divides into bronchioles. Bronchioles are the various, this bronchi enters in the lungs and they are divided into various bronchioles. Okay. Now bronchioles thereafter divide into alveolar sac. This dotted structure you can see, these are alveolar sac. Now these alveolar sac, the plural is alveoli. This is the functional unit of lungs. So alveolar sac are the functional unit of lungs. Clear? Next come the lungs. So the lungs is the major respiratory organ. That is the pair of triangular shaped bag-like structure. That is the major organ for our exchange of gases. Now I will describe you about the structure of the lungs in detail. Well children, I was just telling you that I will describe about the structure of human lungs. Now you can see that our lungs actually lie inside our rib cage. Now rib cage is a framework of bones. How many bones can you tell me? There are, okay, think about the number of bones. 12 pair of ribs. That means 24 rib bone are there in our rib cage. Now you see, inside the rib cage, you can see here I have drawn the rib cage. This is the red color is the lungs inside. Okay, and here is the lungs that I have drawn. separately. Now these are the two lungs, right lungs and left lungs. So right lungs, this is the right lungs, this is the left lungs. Okay, now these right lungs, you can see there are three lobes. Right lungs is comparatively larger than the left lungs. Now left lungs has two lobes. Okay, now these lungs lie within the rib cage. Clear? Now why this right lungs is larger than the left one? Because to accommodate the heart, okay, left lungs is slightly smaller because you know heart is slightly aligned towards the left. Clear? Now you see these lungs, it is protected by a membranous membrane, a double membrane layer. This double membrane layer is called pleura, P-L-E-U-R-A, pleura. So the lungs are protected by a double membrane layer called pleura. Now within these two membrane there is a fluid. So if you can see in this figure, I have drawn here the pleura. You can see this is the lungs, entire lungs. I have drawn two membranes. See, blue color membrane. This is one membrane inside, another membrane outer side. These are the two membranes. Inside which I have drawn a red color. I have marked the red color. Okay. I have bolded it. Now this red part is the pleura. Now this pleura contain this outer membrane, inner membrane is the pleura. Now in between the pleura there is pleural fluid. Okay. Now this pleural fluid protect the lungs from friction. Okay, from various type of mechanical injury from external environment, as well as it also protect the lungs internally. So this is about the structure of lungs. Clear? Now I will be telling you about the mechanism of breathing. Now before going to that, I will tell you about respiration. Now respiration is the entire process. Respiration involves two steps. Okay, don't confuse it. Respiration involves two steps. One is breathing, that is also known as external respiration, and another is cellular respiration, which is called internal respiration. So these two together known as respiration in human. Okay, so external respiration is the breathing, and internal respiration, that is the cellular respiration, is the respiration part that takes place inside within the cell. Now here today I am here with the mechanism of breathing. That is, breathing means that is the external respiration. So external respiration actually involves two steps: inhalation, exhalation. Inhalation means the inspiration process, that is taking in of oxygen rich air inside the lungs through our trachea from the external environment. Exhalation means giving out of foul air, that is carbon dioxide rich air from the lungs to the environment through our trachea or through the external environment. So this is about the two steps of the mechanism of breathing. Now let me describe about the inhalation or inspiration first. Now actually you have to know in this part that what exactly happened to the intercostal muscle, the rib cage and the diaphragm. So these three structures basically play a role during inspiration and expiration. Now what is intercostal muscle, what is this rib and what is this diaphragm? Let me first describe. Then you can understand the mechanism of breathing. So just now I told you that I will tell you about the various definitions or the keywords about diaphragm, intercostal muscle and rib cage. Well, now let me discuss about intercostal muscle. You can see here I have drawn the intercostal muscle. Okay, now you see very minutely I have drawn here and tried to explain you these blank spaces within. These are the ribs. Okay, ribs. These ribs. Okay, within the ribs you see there are several groups of muscle that lie between the ribs. So this is the ribs, no? So in between the ribs there are group of muscles. Now these group of muscles are called intercostal muscle that help the movement of the chest wall during breathing. So you see this filled one with the blue pen, that is the intercostal muscle, and the blank one are the ribs. Clear? So the intercostal muscle lie within the ribs and that help the movement of the chest wall. Clear? Next come the diaphragm. Now what is diaphragm exactly? Diaphragm, you see this is the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm. Okay? Here you can see this is the diaphragm. Here this is the diaphragm. Now what is diaphragm exactly? Diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle. It is also a muscle. It's a dome-shaped muscle that separates the abdominal cavity from the thoracic cavity. thorax. In the thorax is the abdomen. So diaphragm is the sheet of muscle, dome-shaped sheet of muscle that separates the abdominal cavity from the thoracic cavity. I think now you are clear about diaphragm. And the third one, the third key word that I was telling about, the ribs. Okay, or rib cage. Rib cage is of bony framework of 12 pair of ribs that form our cage-like structure that encloses the lungs and the heart. Clear? So this is about the three key words. Now let me discuss about the inhalation that I was telling you. Now inhalation or inspiration is an active process. Why I am telling this word active process? Because it is a energy dependent process, or you can say it is an energy requiring process. Now during the inhalation, the contraction of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscle take place. Now I am again describing you, just listen properly. It is an active process, energy dependent process where the contraction of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscle is involved. Okay, as the diaphragm will contract and the intercostal muscle will contract. So what will happen? If they contract, then what will happen? The space in the thoracic cavity will enhance. That is, the thoracic cavity will be expanded. And due to the contraction of external intercostal muscle, it will result in the movement of the rib in the forward direction. Clear? So there is a contraction of the external intercostal muscle. Now here I will tell you that intercostal muscles are of two types, internal intercostal muscle and external intercostal muscle. Now when there is a contraction of the external intercostal muscle, it will result in the movement of the rib cage forward. Okay, forward in the chest cavity, and in the upward direction the diaphragm will move. So the rib will move in the forward and outward direction, and the diaphragm will move downward. The diaphragm will move, downward. Now when this diaphragm will move downward, see, the diaphragm is moving down, making a space in the thoracic cavity. Rib cage is moving out and up. So what happens? Here the volume of the thoracic cavity increases. Am I clear? So the diaphragm moves down, the ribs move out and up. That makes a great volume in the thoracic cavity. As a result, what will happen? Due to this decrease in the air pressure, okay, so the air pressure will decrease, okay, and there will be increase in the volume of the lungs. Due to this decrease in the air pressure, the air will rush inside the lungs. Clear? And this is what called inspiration. Now the next part is exhalation or expiration. Now just the opposite happens during exhalation or expiration. Now what happens, you see, it is the process where the expulsion of the foul air takes place. Expulsion means it is the process where the carbon dioxide rich air is exhaled out or given out from the lungs. Now during this process what happens, you see, the intercostal muscle relaxes. Diaphragm also relaxes. As the diaphragm relaxes, intercostal muscle relaxes. So what happens? The diaphragm usually regains its original shape. It goes up, moves up. Intercostal muscle relaxes, pushes back and inward. Okay, inward and downward. So intercostal muscle pushes downward and inward. For that, what happens? When the intercostal muscle relaxes, the rib also move inward. Okay, and downward. And what happens to the rib? The rib also moves up. The diaphragm also moves up. Okay, and as a result, what happens? This causes a reduction in the volume of the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity decreases in volume because of the upliftment of the diaphragm and movement of the rib cage inward. Okay, so as a result, when the volume of the thoracic cavity reduces, so what happens? The lungs regain its original shape. There is a high pressure of the air inside, and as a result, what happens? The air is pushed out. Due to the increase in the air pressure inside the lungs pushes out the air out. So this is the Now process. Now here I have made a mistake. I have not drawn the air out. So the air is pushing out from the trachea. This is the trachea. Clear? You see, this is the air pushing in the inspiration, trachea, lungs. These are the ribs. You can see the arrow and understand where is the direction of the arrow. So the direction of arrow is very important for you. You have to practice all these diagrams. Okay. These diagrams, all these diagrams are very, very important for you. Next the next topic is exchange of gases. So I hope you understood the differences between inhalation and exhalation. If you get the differences between inhalation and exhalation, what are you going to write? You will write inhalation, it is a bringing in of fresh air from the outside. Exhalation means it is the passing out of foul air from the body to the outside, that is from the lungs to the outside environment. Next, what about the intercostal muscle? During inhalation, intercostal muscle contracts, rib moves upward. Here, exhalation, ribs move inward and downward, and intercostal muscle relaxes. Okay, so what is the volume? What is the role of the volume of the thoracic cavity? In inhalation, volume of the thoracic cavity increases. In exhalation, volume of the thoracic cavity decreases. So these are the few type of differences. Even a very important one of the point that I have described in the beginning, that is inhalation is an active process, energy dependent process. Clear? In the beginning I just mentioned that it is an energy dependent process, but exhalation on the other hand is a passive process. No energy is required. So my dear students, the last part of the mechanism of breathing is exchange of gases. Okay, in the lungs and tissues. Exchange of gases in lungs and tissues. Now here you see the first point is exchange of gases in lungs, and second is the exchange of gases in the tissue. Now what happened in the exchange of gases? Now you see, in the exchange of gases in lungs, the concentration of oxygen in the lungs in the alveoli is higher than that of the blood capillary outside. Okay. Now for that, oxygen diffuses from the alveoli to the lungs, from the alveoli to the blood, and these blood capillary have high concentration of carbon dioxide. So it brings the carbon dioxide from the tissue to the blood into the alveoli. So this is the exchange process of the gases exchange in the lungs. Okay. Next come gases exchange in the tissue. Now in the cells and the tissues, the oxygen is continuously being used, because you know that already that cell require energy for doing its activities. Now during these activities, lot of energy is released, along with that carbon dioxide also produced as a byproduct along with water vapor. Now the oxygen is supplied to the cells and tissues. Clear? Okay. And the oxygenated blood is used by the cells and tissues, and as a result the cells and tissues releases carbon dioxide. Now the concentration of oxygen is more in the blood and less in the tissue during exchange. So the oxygen moves from the blood to the tissue. Similarly, the concentration of carbon dioxide is more in the tissue and less in the blood. So carbon dioxide moves from the tissue to the blood. So this is called internal respiration. And then what happened? The oxygen in the blood is carried by the hemoglobin. The very beginning I told you what is hemoglobin. There is a pigment present in our RBC that form oxyhemoglobin, and the oxyhemoglobin is the hemoglobin bound with oxygen, and carbaminohemoglobin is the hemoglobin bound with carbon dioxide. So this is the process of the exchange of gases in the lungs and tissues. Understood? I hope you understood this process. So let me describe this process with a. Now see, diagrammatically I have tried to explain about the exchange of gases. Now as I told you just a few minutes ago that suppose this is the bronchiole. Okay, the bronchiole, terminal bronchiole, these are alveoli. These are alveoli. See, this rounded structure are alveoli. Now you can see two type of blood vessels I have drawn here. Okay, now this is the blood vessel, blue color, carrying carbon dioxide rich blood. This is the blood vessel carrying oxygen rich blood. Now you see here alveoli, this air moves in and out through the alveoli, that is alveolar sac. Okay, now exactly what happens, you see, just once again I am explaining this process, as you may get confused about the topic of exchange of gases. Now in the cell, see, the cell is doing work. For that the cell needs energy. During doing some activity in the cell, oxygen is required. So where is the oxygen more? In the blood, because the blood is bringing the oxygen from the lungs to the tissues and cells. So as there is large amount of oxygen outside in the blood medium, while the oxygen concentration is less in the alveoli, so there is a pressure gradient difference. A difference in the gradient. That means gradient means what? The concentration. Concentration difference is there between the blood and the alveoli. As a result, oxygen rushes inside the alveoli. Clear? Okay. Now, how is oxygen coming to these alveoli? By the formation of oxyhemoglobin. The oxygen combines with hemoglobin, the pigment, respiratory pigment, to form oxyhemoglobin, and that enter the tissues or cells. And again, when the cells are doing the activities, the concentration of the carbon dioxide in the cells increases. As a result, what happens? Outside in the blood medium, carbon dioxide is less. So there is again a concentration gradient. So the carbon dioxide from the cell expel out in the blood. Okay, into the blood medium. So this is actually exactly what is about the exchange of gases. So I hope you understood the topic of exchange of gases. So read the definitions of breathing, respiration, inhalation, exhalation, and the basic differences between inhalation, exhalation. Okay, then differences between breathing and respiration, as well as you see. Yes, well, here I want to tell you something, that is the hemoglobin. Often you see or you hear that your hemoglobin count falls down. Now, what is the normal level of hemoglobin range in a normal human being? That is about 12 to 18 gram per deciliter. So, deficiency of hemoglobin may cause the decrease in the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, which will result in breathing problems, tiredness, and you may look pale and you may lose your weight too. So eat properly, all iron rich diet, okay, and enhance your hemoglobin amount to the normal level. So keep watching the next video. Hello my dear children, I hope you understood the topic of the mechanism of breathing in human being. So I have tried to explain you by various diagrams and the steps involved in the mechanism of breathing. So if you like the topic and the content that I have provided to you, then you may subscribe my channel for the further videos that I am going to upload for you, as well as if you think that the contents provided by me are useful for you and your friends, then you can share with your friends as well. Thanks for watching my videos.